What's up, everybody? Welcome to IGN Game Scoop. I'm your host, Daemon Hatfield, and you might be wondering, where are my co-hosts this week? We do have a great show planned for you. I'm this week joined by Justin Davis and Sam Claiborn. Tina Amini could not join us this week. She had something come up at the last minute, so you got a three-person podcast this week. But then some technical difficulties happened, so we lost the first couple of minutes of audio from the episode. So I've got to get you caught up to speed, and then I'm going to hand you off for the rest of the episode, which is still a great show. But first, this episode is my sole Cyber Monday purchase that I made. This coffee table book, Arcade Game Typography, from a designer, Toshi Omagari, and it's awesome. It's so nerdy. It's so damey. It just goes through breaking down what goes into all of the fonts and typography from arcade games from the 80s and 90s. This is so me. I love it. The little sort of like setup for the book is that video game designers of the 70s, 80s, and 90s faced color and resolution limitations that stimulated incredible creativity. Letters had to exist within an 8x8 pixel grid, so artists found ways to create expressive and elegant character sets on tiny canvases. And he just goes through hundreds and hundreds of games and just sort of like gives his take on what went into the font. You got Food Fight here, one of my favorite arcade games, one of my favorite games I used to play on the Atari 7800, of which they say arcade graphics eventually became powerful enough to spare resources for the development of minor elements such as type, and one of the earliest uses of a multicolor typeface was in March 1982 in Food Fight. This three-color font, This three-color font uses two darker tones for anti-aliasing around the chunky sans serif and looks great on the intended black background. 11 color palettes flash constantly on the screen, embracing this newfound graphical potential in type design. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, I have 265 pages of this awaiting me, and my wife thinks I'm a big old nerd. But I don't care. I think it's great. So then we got into how Casey Hudson is leaving BioWare again. Left BioWare in 2014, came back in 2017. Is leaving again now. The only game he launched in his second stint there was Anthem. A lot has been said about Anthem. Now, 2 years after that game's launched, Anthem Next is still nowhere to be found. He's leaving the company again. It's just this is not a new conversation. It would seem that BioWare's glory days are well in their rearview mirror. But that led to further discussion about Marvel's Avengers, how they're kind of in the same boat. Both of these games, Anthem and Marvel's Avengers, are games as a service that had less than ideal launches, but both EA and Square Enix are trying to keep these games, trying to sort of resurrect, trying to not have both these games be complete financial losses. And we had an email about Marvel's Avengers, which I'll read to you right here. This comes from Sean from Leeds, UK, which says, last week I saw on various sites, including IGN, that the Avengers game still hasn't made its costs back of making the game. I would love to hear why you think that is. And there you have it. You're all caught up. I now hand you off to your regularly recorded episode of Game Scoop. Please to enjoy. So Square Enix did announce that sales of Marvel's Avengers have been lower than expected. The game has not yet recouped its development costs, leading to approximately $67 million operating loss in Square Enix's HD Games segment during the last financial quarter. And I think it's interesting that they have an HD Games segment.
I guess that's separate from they do big business on mobile games.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, those are also HD.
But we all know what they mean.
I've never heard that distinction be made, though. But I guess it's just that they can't say console games anymore because it includes PC. And it's just funny to think of it that way. Non-mobile. They just mean non-mobile, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, the official quote from Square Enix leadership was, "We hope to make up for slow initial sales by offering ample additional content to grow our sales." So it's another situation like Anthem. They're going to keep adding content to the game in the hopes that more people will buy the game.
Yeah, they're adding Kate Bishop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there's multiple new character drops planned for that game. It is a good question, though. The what happened to this game, to Marvel's Avengers? It's a good question. Let's hear it, Sam.
There's some obvious stuff, like it didn't get good review scores. We gave it a 6. And there was a worldwide pandemic that kept people from buying games. But there's also another thing. There's no Avengers movies this year. There just isn't. Like, this should have hit when there was like everybody was talking about Infinity War.
There are no movies this year.
Yeah. I mean, but like, that's a big deal, right? When kids are all dressing like Captain America and, you know, wanting to buy a bunch of merchandise and stuff around the Avengers movies, that's when you hit with a big Avengers game. Like, it's just so obvious. And they missed the window. And I don't think they expected to not have, you know, movies this year, but also like they would have had Black Widow. Like, come on.
Yeah.
You know, that wouldn't have pushed it anyway. Like, they needed to do this during the Infinity War movies.
Yeah. I'm not convinced that Avengers is an appropriate property and license to be getting this kind of treatment. Like, you know, a looter shooter. I know it's not a shooter, but like, you know, a loot based grind 'em up game, you know, and sort of bolting armor onto the Hulk and stuff. Like, it feels shoehorned into the license where, like, I like that kind of game, you know, sometimes. Like, I played Destiny for a long time. And it just doesn't jive and gel well with like these Avengers heroes that we know, and like it feels cynical, and so it already has this hump to overcome, just in that bias there, and so the game has to be kind of extra good to overcome that, and you know, it couldn't deliver on that.
Yeah, like, you know, it hasn't been a totally smooth ride for this game ever since it was first revealed.
Yeah.
A lot of people, myself included, were not too impressed with the visuals. We mentioned the character models seemed off. And then it was very confusing what this game actually was to a lot of us for a long time. And then there's that portion of the audience, of the hardcore gaming audience, that doesn't want a game as service. You know, that's sort of vicious of that sort of model. So like, your hardcore gamers were always suspicious of this game. They're always going to be a tough sell. But I guess maybe I am a little bit surprised that a more casual gamer who owns a PS4 or Xbox and just they're shopping at Target, they see there's a Marvel Avengers game. I would think those people would be a little bit more likely to give it a try, right?
I think Avengers is a stronger candidate to be a turnaround story than Anthem is, frankly. And that's just based off like a gut check on my part. Like, you know,
it's a huge license. They have Disney behind it. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And they clearly have such a clear and strong path of like adding characters, adding villains, adding more, like the runway there. Like, you know, I'm not a game designer, but it's clear as day how they can sort of continue to support that product for years and years to come.
It's weird how Fortnite's become the Marvel living game, and the Marvel living game is being forgotten about. They also could have aligned with the next gen consoles in a more meaningful way, and then, you know, had this like big Marvel push at launch, but they went a little bit early, which seemed like it could work, but you know, it just didn't have the. I mean, also we needed launch games for these consoles too, and it would have been interesting if they would have held off and done that. But
it's been one of the things I like most about Black Friday, and I work Black Friday for IGN, is seeing which contemporary, like new games, get deeply discounted and which don't, because that can sort of reveal the fortunes of that game. And it's not a reflection of quality at all, necessarily, but just sales and hype and interest. Like Watch Dogs Legion was $30 on Black Friday. And like, you know, Assassin's Creed Valhalla was not $30. It was actually pretty hard to find that game, you know, much cheaper than $10 off. And so that sort of shows you the rising or falling fortunes of like, you know, certain games that came out within the last calendar year. And Avengers is one that I know for a fact it was $30 everywhere, and I think actually still is, and may have actually gotten down to $25.
Well, speaking of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that's what I've been spending the most time playing. Last night I ticked over the 30-hour mark, and I think I'm still probably early on in the
what
story.
level are you?
I'm nearing, I think, in the late 70s.
Okay.
Which is a little bit scary to me, because the next areas that I'm not supposed to go to are like level 160.
They go up to like 300.
When am I going to get there?
I'm doing the math of like, I'm level like 70 or whatever after this many hours. I'm like, unless this picks up the pace, like I'm not going to be there till I'm like 120 hours into this game.
Yeah. Although,
to get those skill points, definitely do the side quests. Those things they're like 30 seconds long, a lot of them, and you can get the skill points up. But I'm surprised if you're I bet what was going to happen is that it's going to open up. I think what it does is it shows you low and high areas, and then then a bunch of in between ones come along with the story. So I don't think they're going to push you to one, because I haven't played a 160 yet, and I'm at about 160.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how many hours do you have logged?
Well, maybe I did play a 161. I don't know where the hour count is. I'll look tonight, but I haven't checked. But I did just go to like a new area map, which was like really cool, and it has a kind of like an Eventide Island thing where they're like, this is a whole new way of playing. Do this for a little while, and I thought I'd be annoyed by it, but then I really, really liked it.
Yeah, every open world game has to have a survival island now. It's the law.
It's a thing, right? It totally is.
Yep.
Sam, the save screen shows your total playtime.
Okay.
On your actual save.
Does it have a pause screen? Because it feels like it's paused a lot. Looking at maps. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Look at the map. You look at the skill tree. Planning out the skill tree.
But like you guys, like I'm also seeing like there's like a monster, and I'll go back and think, I wonder if I can take that on now. I'm like, no, it's 290 level. Like I don't even know if I'll ever be at that. Like I can. That's just way too much game.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of monsters, there's a I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a there are some like monsters in quotes in the game. Have you guys encountered any of those missions? Okay.
Mm-hmm. One of them is just a bonus mission that was like I didn't know that was like a based on a external story that they had, which was kind of funny. But when they skirt the supernatural stuff like that, they usually do it by like you're drunk or taking drugs.
You're high.
And stuff. They do a lot of that. And then, but then there's some things that aren't like that. Like there's a collectible in the game that you'll come across. It's not a spoiler. It's everywhere that are curses, and you kill a like flaming skull, and it rids the curse. Like that's a supernatural thing they're fine with. There's no explanation for that.
Well, and that's what I like. What I don't mind any of that stuff. I think it's fine because I think the Assassin's Creed is a silly franchise, and so sure, have flaming skulls in it. But like, what I like is that they do work hard in those games to have a consistent canon. Like the Assassin's Creed games have like a through line and lore, and so that means in that game world all that shit's just real. It all just exists, and like I think it's at its height in Odyssey. That just was like half that game was supernatural enemies, which I again I loved it. I didn't mind it, but like they seem to make no effort at like lore consistency there.
Did they? I didn't get to any of the supernatural stuff in that game. Did they do explanations like the thing we're talking about?
No, you just fight like gorgons and stuff like that.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Minotaur.
It's not like a giant bear that turns out to have like a costume or something.
There actually is some of that too, but no, like you fight Medusa and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So I've aligned with one. I don't even know what you call it. One kingdom, and then I'm deep into the storyline of aligning with a second one.
That's the game. You take over territories. Yeah. There's like. I've probably done like 10 of those now or something. I don't know how many there are.
I feel like they're really long, and that's why I'm only because I'm also doing a lot of side quest stuff.
You can probably cook through each territory in like 45 minutes or something if you just do the story parts, and then some are just not as interesting areas as others. So I try to move through those, and then if it's like a really cool area it takes you to, I'm like, I'm gonna spend time doing all the side quests here.
The one I've been doing is the one where there's a weenie king, and no one respects him, and he has to like you have to like sort of toughen him up.
Chaelwolf? Or Chaelbert? I think he's Chaelwolf's son.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the one I'm like sort of deep into.
And then there's the torture guy that's like becomes his like I don't know, his advisee.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are recurring characters. And like those ones, like you stick with some of the kingdom characters as they move through places. So you have some recurrence, and then some are just like one-offs you go to. You're just like, I killed all the people I needed to kill there. Now I'm going home.
Have you guys? What do you think about the side quests? I've been a little bit disappointed because sometimes, like you said, Sam, they might be like 30 seconds long, and there's just not much to
when
them.
I'm grinding, I'm really thankful for that. Like there was one where it's just like this pig talks, and you're like, okay, hi pig, and the pig is not talking, and it's like, well, you got to drink that first, and then you drink that, and then you listen to the pig twice, and then the side quest's over.
Yeah.
And it's like that's really funny. And there's some where it's like, carry this stuff for me. I'm like, okay.
That's the one I wanted to mention. The priest who loves apples. Did you do that one?
No, but I've carried stuff for other people. They're like, did you do the guy where he's like, throw this stuff over the edge of the cliff?
Well,
it's just stuff like that. Yeah.
There's one where like there's a nudist colony, right? And they want you to go and steal everyone's clothes.
Oh,
there's that one too.
They're all really short, and they're all they're comedic relief. Almost every single time. And so, like knowing that going into it, where like that allows it's smart because it allows them to have their cake and eat it too, and tell this fairly serious, gritty story. But if you want the comic relief, you kind of have to go seek it out, which is clever. But no, I find myself skipping those side quests. I find myself skipping. I've basically decided to skip the game. I think I've bounced off it. Yeah, I'm not quite as far as you, but I did get 20 or 25 hours in, and I'm not feeling it anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
there's plenty to play. So
my feeling about it hasn't changed. I'm definitely enjoying it. I like this type of game, but it's not top tier open world game or top tier Assassin's Creed for me. And when Cyberpunk comes out next week, I might bounce off Assassin's Creed entirely.
It started with I'm not getting these treasures anymore. These are pointless. I don't need to collect these. And I'm like, you know what? I'm also not doing these side quests. And then it was sort of like, I kind of want to skip these main quests too and just put this game on the shelf.
Yeah, where's the hook?
Yeah,
I did a bunch of weapon collecting early on, and then I realized I do have since you can upgrade any weapon throughout the whole game. And if you have one of each and they have okay bonuses, then it's just well, I don't want to spend the time grinding for the resources to update a bunch of weapons. I'll just update this one set and just see how it goes. And it's fine. I actually like it better than the Odyssey system, but I don't have any there's no drive for me to keep on collecting in that game right now.
Yeah, I've been dual wielding to light axes the entire game. I don't really feel any reason to switch it up.
2 spears is really funny. It just changes your character a whole lot, and it looks really stupid, and it's really effective.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe I will give it one more shot because I haven't messed. I've only done sword and board, so it's I should probably try some different fighting styles.
I really drop shields. I was trying so hard to make shields work, and they don't matter. They don't matter at all. And if you put another offense thing in that slot, you do twice as much offense, and everything just dies quickly. It's just easy, and you just roll,
parry.
Right?
Yeah, you just roll and parry, and
I will say, I got 2 weeks ago. I said I was really excited for my 4K TV to come, and it came. The LG CX, which is not just a 4K TV; it's the best 4K TV, and that game is incredible. It's so much better looking than other. I think it's. I know this is an underrated opinion. I think it looks better than Spider-Man Miles Morales. Call of Duty, just the visual fidelity of that compared to every other next gen game I've tried to play. The HDR is just unbelievable. Which I'm not massively influenced by graphics, but that game, the leap from 1080p to 4K, it's it is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do agree, especially scenery wise, although maybe facial animation is not the best I've ever seen.
No, it's not.
What I wanted to say about that side quest with the priest who loves apples. You encounter a priest on the road. He said, this box of apples fell off our cart. My church is down the road. Can you help me carry the apples? So sure. I'm walking down the road carrying the apples, and he's going on and on about how much he loves apples. And when we get to the church, we're going to bob for apples. And I was this is weird. I'm going to be stepping into something really bizarre. Oh my gosh, what's ahead? And when you get to the church, he's just thanks for walking me back with my apples. That was it. So it's
hopefully that's setting up something that's going to 10 hours later.
Yeah.
Well, not as good as the talking pig then.
Yeah, guess not. I do like that the dice game, but I don't get to play it enough.
Oh my god.
I really like it actually. Yeah, I want that as a standalone too.
I was so mad that I had to play that once, and then I saw that in the Assassin's Tree, it was oh, it's play the dice game and take out this guy. I was no. It was beat Dice Champion to unlock this clue.
I really like
There's
it.
No way.
I like it a lot.
It's a Justin and Damie game.
Yeah, for sure. Justin, did you see they're making a physical version of it?
No, but that totally makes sense. Yeah. There's nothing digital that could totally be an analog game. So
there's not even that many pieces, that it would require. So
do they have to stack those games when you play them in the video game to make sure that the human can win really easily?
No.
Do they do some kind of imbalancing?
They certainly could because it's dice rolls.
Yeah, I didn't mean with that. I just wonder if you go first always, it's just so much easier. I just don't know how they set that up. Although in the main quest, I lost it and it was fine. I just kept going.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand why I lost it or what the rules were, but I tried.
Well, when we record this next week, we'll be recording on the day that Cyberpunk comes out.
Ooh, that's cool.
So we probably won't have. Unless we get early copies, which I have no idea. We won't be able to talk about it next week. We'll have to wait till the week after that.
Yeah.
Please be excited.
Mm-hmm.
Let's check in with the listeners.
Hey, hello. Listeners,
remember, you can always reach us at the email address gamescoop@ign.com, just like Justin Smith in Anchorage, Alaska did.
Swerve.
Mr. Smith says, as I stood in line at 3 a.m. this past Saturday in the cool Alaskan air, waiting in line for a 6 a.m. release of the 30 units of PS5s my local store had, I couldn't help but wonder why consoles are still coming out in November. I feel like this was a logical move when video games were still a relatively new product and the decision to purchase them fell to parents. Mm-hmm. Launching consoles near holidays helped move units off of shelves and took advantage of Yuletide spending habits. This doesn't seem to be a smart strategy anymore, since they can't even keep them stocked. All I could think of as I shuffled in place to stay warm was, if this happened in June, it would be fun. I'd bring a grill. I'd make it an event. I can't help but think that a summer launch would also benefit the sales, since the hardcore gamers could get their consoles at launch, and the second wave could be ready to get those Black Friday dollars. What do you think? PS6 is a summer 2027 release? Nice job on 100 questions last week.
Well, thank you.
I think that's a great suggestion. I completely agree. I'd never thought about it before. The idea of tailgating a console launch, I think, is fantastic.
And the spending around the holiday season is, I really like his point about how that's a parental thing. And I think a lot of game sales are unfortunately, it's kids telling their parents what they want, but also parents making decisions on their own, and they're bad ones. And I think a lot of people can sell their bad games during the holiday season. And I'm saying that because I got a lot of bad games from relatives and people that meant well growing up during that season, just because they don't know, right? They're just I'll just buy whatever's $20. So there's still that kind of game sales tied to the season. But I've always wondered also, in the summer, kids have summer jobs. And so once you gain independence a little bit and have a job over the summer, it's really fun to spend your money on video games, right? And I think that's a really good time to have new video games, and you're not in school, and there's just there's a lot going for the summer. But boy, toy sales and holiday season are just seem to be just tied so tightly that it's hard to break that.
Yeah. I really like Justin's point that you could have this double whammy of clearly the hardcore are going to buy the console at launch, and then you get this second wave of presumably you have your stock issues sorted out. The console is findable and on store shelves by Christmas, and then it can be a big Christmas present too. No, I think he's right. I think he should let's get him in charge of Sony.
Let's run this up the chain.
Yeah. Doug Bowser is coming for you.
The weather thing is really, really a good point. I mean, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's so awful to have to do, consumery outdoor waiting in line things. And that's a really unfortunate side effect that I don't think is really considered in any way when they're making these decisions. But I really like that. Of course, we'd be screwing over Australia, parts of Africa and South America if we had them in our summer.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. And I also think that it's funny because they come out in this specific season, this late November, where it's not even pleasant in California to have a grill out. It doesn't even matter. I waited in line for the Wii in Arizona, which is a very, very hot state. It got so cold at night.
Oh yeah, sure.
So yeah, it's not good for anybody.
I had when the Wii came out, I was 22 or 23 and had an old terrible beater car, and then I woke up at 5 a.m. to drive to Walmart or whatever and go stand in line and get the Wii, and it was freezing because it's November, and my car window got stuck down on that trip, and then it was stuck down that whole winter because I didn't have the money to get it fixed. And that's my enduring, I really like my Wii. I was just
you got the Wii by going at 5 a.m.
Yeah, and the second half of that story is, I was 14th in line or whatever number it was, and they came out and said, we have 14 systems, so we're handing you this ticket. Anybody that's in line, you're not going to get one. You don't need to be here. And there was a little boy and his mom in line behind me, and the little boy started to cry.
Oh boy.
And then I was this close to turning around and giving him my ticket and making his Christmas, but then I didn't. I just kept it, and then I got the Wii.
You got it on eBay. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they weren't like that. They didn't really get hard to find until actually the next year when it really became a phenomenon. That Christmas, they were findable. And then I grumbled every time I got in my car. Damn Wii, car's freezing. Hope it was worth it.
The Switch launched in March, so that's a little bit.
Yep.
And was still, a success.
And going back, they didn't really tie it to the holidays. I think for that exact reason, so they could like ramp up hype and ramp up supply, and then like the holidays, they'd be ready for it. It is weird that it's like that now.
Well, so you know who had it right then? The Nintendo 64 and the Dreamcast. Those are September releases.
Yeah, September releases, and then like Sega used to do ones in like the Saturn was like famously like surprise launched in March
E3. Yeah.
Was it E3?
I think for pure, not for success or like any sort of objective measurement, but just pure hype levels. I don't think the Dreamcast launch like has ever been like $99.99, and the event that they made out of that was just like. It's going to stick in my brain forever. It was just perfect.
Yep. Okay, this is Nick from Fort Wayne, Indiana. He says, I'm a longtime fan of the Scoop Crew, and I make time every week for the best and only gaming podcast available. Towards the end of the year, I find myself going back over previous episodes just to get my Game Scoop fix. And this year, in honor of the Video Game Awards on December 10th, I've decided as fans, we need to bestow our loyal Game Scoop cast members with our own Viewers' Choice Awards. So read on to learn my picks for the very first Viewer's Choice edition of Game Scoop. Which can you recall? He asks.
Wait a second. So it's just a Viewer's Choice.
Yes, a Viewer's Choice. So hardest video game 20 questions of the year was Project Cross Zone for 3DS from episode 587.
If we would have done that right now, and you would have said it's this, game with lots of characters, and this is exactly what it came out on, and you guys had it for 20 questions at this date, I would have not been able to say that name.
Oh, probably. The slickest 20 questions save was NES Remix from episode 566. I can't believe that was this year. Either. Swag of the year was Damon's pink Genesis hoodie, which I meant to pull out. That in episode 562.
That was a good one.
What about the hat? What about the LED hat?
I know.
I don't know if that got an award. Mug of the year was the elusive red IGN mug that mysteriously isn't on the IGN store.
Oh, yeah. We don't sell any mugs on the store yet.
No mugs?
Note to self. Prediction of the year. Justin correctly predicted the title of Super Mario 3D All-Stars in episode 573.
Is that really true?
Said maybe they'll call it that, like Mario 3D All-Stars or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Controversy of the year. The Wario dispute on Video Game 20 Questions. Was it for Wario Land Shake It?
Yeah, it was that. There was a GameCube game called Wario Land that I think we called it for, but the game was a Wii game.
Shake It was Wii. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Gotcha. The F-Bomb Award goes to Sam for various episodes.
I've said it once this year. Yes, that's true. But I've always asked you to beep it, so it's really that award should go to Damon.
Special guest of the year goes to Tina's cat Lion. Comment of the year was apparently me. When trying a suggested website for online quizzes, I said this website Sporkle is a bunch of bullshit.
I remember that.
But the runner-up comment of the year comes from Sam. When discussing the size of Gollum, you said he was a hobbit. Why are we talking about this? I don't remember the context of that. Maybe the Gollum game.
Well, he was a store, so I should have corrected myself.
Yeah. Most renowned hard out host is Tina. Topic of the year: comparing other games to Breath of the Wild. From various episodes, one could say most episodes.
Okay. First of all, we're criticized for that, so I think we reduced it in 2020, if anything.
Yeah, it was winding down.
We probably reduced it in 2019 and then ramped it back up again.
Okay. Yeah, because that's when people were most critical about it.
Yeah. The runner-up topic of the year was, how much will the next-gen consoles cost? I guess we had that discussion on various episodes.
I wonder if we ever did formal, I wonder if we did formal predictions on that. I mean, I don't think $499 is like a controversial thing, but I think we were a little worried that the PS5 might be more expensive earlier in the year.
Most anticipated upcoming game is Pine Tree Jack, developed and published by Samco. And so that must have been when we had the Antstream guy on about the streaming retro game service, Sam. Yeah. And you presented us with some titles of retro games, and one of them was, some of them were real, some were fake.
Yeah, that's right.
Pine
was
Tree
that this
Jack.
year?
I mean, right? It says episode 562. I guess it was this year, man.
But that was in the studio, so it must have been January, February.
And remember, they were going to have a presence at South by Southwest in March.
Yeah. The Game of the Year award goes to the Sam Prank Potato Game. We talked about that in episode 564. That's when two listeners like prank each other by sending them stuff with your face on it, Sam.
There's no way that was this year.
It was this year.
Was it really?
And then I wish Tina were here for this, because Omega Cop of the Year award goes to Tina for consistently managing to bring up Red Dead Redemption 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, if I can't bring up Breath of the Wild, then I'm going to bring up Red Dead Redemption 2 as well.
All right, that was a Viewer's Choice Award, the first annual. Can't believe it. Nice. We'll have to pass on congratulations to Tina.
As the only video gaming podcast, it's good to have our first award season.
Yeah,
it really is. Right, really very nice. Okay, since we are in December now, that can only mean one thing. It's time to head to the magazine rack. And I have the December 1988 edition of Video Games and Computer Entertainment, the premiere issue, with an illustrated a scene from Blaster Master on the cover. Are you guys seeing this?
Yeah, I got it.
And I made it all big on my screen, so cool. I'm good to go.
It's the holiday buyer's guide for Nintendo, Atari, and Sega. And then there's computer games.
So I like how they're playing down the cool thing in this game, which is the tank.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, let's get the little man. Let's get the little man out of the tank.
And also, the little man is not like, they always just really tried to cover up, anime-looking things, right? And so this is like, this is like the Mega Man cover version of Blaster Master.
Yeah. I kept this ad in. This is a game I've never heard of, Vampire's Empire, for Amiga, Commodore 64. But this scene is so crazy. For our listeners here, I'll try to describe this.
What's going on?
The game is called Vampire's Empire. It's a 2D platformer, apparently. You've got a Dracula coming out of a coffin that's like a Nosferatu type vampire. And then an old man standing above him who seems very surprised.
Yeah,
and in this game,
clearly Santa.
You play as Van Helsing, though. So if we assume this is Van Helsing, what has happened here? He's wearing a robe. He has no weapons, no stake or anything. He's encountered a coffin. He opened it, and he's surprised that a vampire came out.
Maybe that's just a lowly villager that has to be saved by Van Helsing.
Yeah.
Also, check out that cool logo for Magic Bites.
Magic Bites.
I'm uncomfortable with how vampire and empire don't quite rhyme.
Yeah, Vampire's Empire.
It's really bugging me.
Yeah.
They should have. I can tell what happened here. Somebody made a really cool, like Castlevania-like game, right? You can see like it looks like, like it's dark and gloomy and really cool. And then their little brother made the art for the flyer, and they're like, "You screwed it all up." But you already sent this to the printer. You screwed it up.
It says high resolution and smooth scrolling graphics, not recommended for persons with weak souls.
Oh, dang. Well, I'm going to look this game up.
The tagline is also, "You will learn to be afraid, very afraid."
What system
be afraid? Well, like Amiga and Commodore 64.
Okay.
And be afraid, be very afraid was the tagline to the Fly remake, David Cronenberg's Fly remake. So
they borrowed
that. Yeah.
That's where that came from, huh? And that was in the zeitgeist at the time.
Hot dates.
Upcoming
Konami games. Upcoming Konami games. Life Force. It says soar to the galaxy's rescue in your sleek Road British space destroyer.
What?
Yeah, I know. Everyone knows it's the Vic Viper. But I looked up the manual for Life Force, and the Player 2 ship is called Road British.
What?
Okay.
So I know. So I don't know how that made it here.
Man, what a line! Like, what a back-to-back on these. Man, in a 4-month span, some of the greatest games ever made.
Yeah. Well, so for the listeners, this is for Life Force, Adventures of Bio-Billy, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, Track and Field 2, and Blades of Steel. And they're all hitting August, October, November, December.
I just want to pause here. Which is the greatest games ever made on here?
Well, as Life Force came out of my mouth, I'm like, I may have slightly oversold it. But
Life Force is good.
Like, Life Force is really good. Like, Blades of Steel.
Blades of Steel is good. Yeah,
it is. Blades of Steel is a pretty hot hit for that era.
Yeah. So
But Castlevania is great, and Track and Field is great, but these are Castlevania 2 and Track and Field 2, which are not so great.
Yeah.
The copy for Biobility says, venture to the armed estate of Dat Gangster, King of Bourbon Street.
Dat Gangster.
Is it supposed to be like red and like a heavy like mobster accent? I guess.
Or like New Orleans patois. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't want to trip. But for Blades of Steel, it says from the creators of Double Dribble.
Cool.
And the contents, the only thing note here is that they mentioned that the cover illustration, the art was by Alan Hunter, and it says it's Jason and Metal Attacker from Suncom's smash hit Blaster Master. But that's a Sunsoft game.
Sunsoft, yeah.
And they get Sunsoft right later in the issue. So I don't know how they got that wrong here. Suncom is not, I don't think that's the real company.
It's the same thing we point out whenever we look at these, Damon. They were just doing whatever they wanted back then.
Yes, it is true.
Andy Eddy is in here.
Well, yeah, he does a review. He reviews Contra, but then later on he become the editor-in-chief of this magazine.
Wow.
So introduction, the premiere issue. The 3 premier game machines that have captured the lion's share of the current market are all sold by video game giants Atari, Nintendo, and Sega. Each of these game systems is an excellent entertainment value and will provide hours of video game enjoyment. They are, however, very different. Each has its own strengths and weaknesses. And I just want to go over how they describe Nintendo. The Nintendo offering was originally introduced in Japan, where it is enormously popular. As a result, a very good selection of game cartridges is available. Another plus is the Nintendo-sponsored third-party development program. This has put dozens of new games on the market, with many more to come, covering nearly every topic imaginable. I like thinking of games as covering topics. Nintendo is the smallest.
They covered Crocodile Dundee with Bayou Billy. They covered Rambo with Contra.
They covered Dracula with Castlevania. Mm-hmm. The Nintendo is the smallest in size of the 3 units and fits nicely into a tight space. The cartridges may be difficult to insert by very young children, however. While the graphics and sound effects in most of the Nintendo-compatible games are excellent, many also utilize musical scores playing in the background, which are incredible. Nintendo also excels in adventure-type games. The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Kid Icarus, and Blaster Master are only some examples. 3 Nintendo games and a Sunsoft game. These games contain a wealth of detail and also provide the player with a goal, a sense of purpose in finishing a game. Many also provide the means to stop playing a game, then resume at a later date close to the point where the player left off.
What?
I know.
That's next gen then.
Next gen, 1988.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have an ad for Joysticks by Bishou. Bishou is the company, the manufacturer here. And they have 3 different models. One is give your, quote, entertainment system a real zinger.
Zinger.
So I guess, yeah, Zinger is the controller for the NES. Or the Ultimate Super Stick. And it says, I guess the Ultimate can also be used on the NES, which is like an arcade stick. It's wireless. Yeah. And then it says, for other, quote, video game, end quote, players, we have some really hot stuff. And hot stuff is trademarked. I don't know how they were able to trademark hot stuff.
Are you sure that it's wireless? Are you just...
but yes, because the next ad is for the Ultimate, the wireless.
How are they doing that?
Stick.
How did they do that?
Yeah, I mean, the NES had a bunch of these. Their line of sight, they use the same thing that a TV remote uses. So it's like basically an infrared signal to a receiver, and you had to plug something into the front of your system, and then they have they're broadcasting from the controller. They don't work at all.
Yeah, so like you plug the receiver into the controller port on the NES, right?
Mm-hmm. And you go all Palpatine on your television.
Yeah, exactly. Break loose and go remote. It says
this ad is strangely familiar from a previous GameScoop magazine segment. I think
it could be. It says available in better video game stores across America.
Yikes!
Maybe not the best ones, but the better ones.
Yeah, take that, Toys R Us and Babbage's or something. KB Toys.
I think we've seen this. I know. We've seen this ad before. This is for Platoon, the NES game from Sunsoft. And I always like taken aback by this ad because, of course, most people playing NES games in 1988 were children. And here you have this close-up of a man with a knife coming right at the viewer. The knife, ready to plunge into the viewer. It's just a strange ad for something that's being mostly used by children.
Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be like a really high-fidelity shot, too.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. And that's why they show a close-up of a boss from Blaster Master in the next ad. And then I guess I didn't realize Sunsoft handled the ports of Spy Hunter and Xenophobe to NES also.
Yeah, Xenophobe was an incredibly confusing game when I was a child.
It's an Atari game in the arcades, and I always liked it. Although you're right, it's a little bit hard to wrap your head around. Okay, remember this is 1988. We have a news update on Activision adds 2 to the 2600 catalog, a system that was 11 years old at this point. They're getting Commando and Kung Fu Master. And that was big news. Yeah.
What's the Zork news?
Let's Zork again like we did last summer.
I really like that headline. I want to start describing game sequels that way.
It's for Zork Zero.
It says
that had some graphic elements.
According to Infocom, Zork is the all-time best-selling entertainment software product. So it was the GTA 5 of 1988.
With almost 1 million copies sold.
Yeah. So in 1988, almost selling 1 million copies made you the best-selling entertainment software product of all time.
That can't possibly be true.
And it's also 200 million stolen copies.
There's no chance that there wasn't 1 million copies of Mario Brothers and like other games out there by 88.
Maybe, I don't know. It also says Zork Zero will soon be available for $50.
Wow.
$10 less than video games cost in 2020.
Yeah, well, not PS5 games, but yeah.
Sure, but yeah.
And that game was still basically text, too.
Sports headline Nintendo action. A pair of new games from Nintendo put sports simulations high on the NESers hit list this fall. It's about ice hockey and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I just think the write-up of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is strange. It said it lets the gamer advance the ranking of Little Mac, the on-screen boxer surrogate, as he fights 13 bouts in the minor, major, and world circuits. Gamers who defeat the contenders win a dream match against the champion. Lots of fancy frills make the game more fun. Can you imagine what, like in a review, like what would Dan Stapleton do if our reviewer write, lots of fancy frills make the game more fun?
Use an example, is what he'd say.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. Anyway, there's just no mention of any of the boxers. There's no mention of Mike Tyson. Anything that like we would talk about that game today.
Jeez.
The screenshots are clearly like someone taking a photo of a television screen.
Yeah. That's what those Sunsoft ads were too. Like they just did a Polaroid and then blew it up really big, and the results are not pretty.
Yeah, I thought this was fascinating. Activision takes new name. Activision changed its corporate name to Mediagenic to symbolize the company's expanding and diversified product lines. And I looked it up. Yes, Activision did change its name to Mediagenic in 1988. And then by the early 90s, it was almost bankrupt. And Bobby Kotick swooped in and bought it for half of $1 million.
Wow.
And then changed the name back to Activision. And then today it's Activision Blizzard, trading publicly for north of $50 billion.
Yeah, I wish we would have scrabbled that scratch together and bought Activision.
So crazy. So the 1989 buyer's guide begins. I know.
What the fuck?
Oh boy.
So the 1989 buyer's guide begins with a full page artwork, illustration that's a trace of the Commando movie poster with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they gave him an eye patch for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't even know. Control. There's some other creatures around him. One might be a robot. I don't know what they are. And then there's just like a kung fu guy kicking past him.
What is that unicorn Smurf looking mother?
I don't know.
What is that?
He's also shooting a space gun, and the whole thing is inside a Georgia O'Keeffe flower.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good call. So they set up. They've scored each game on playability, action, strategy, graphics, sound, and music. Each one from 1 to 4. 4 is excellent. 1 is poor. And then
that's the famous PASG scale.
PASG
scale.
And so they break them up. They break them up from Nintendo, Sega, and Atari, and I think they just list every single game that's available from Nintendo. It just goes on and on forever.
Yeah,
and
Nintendo some of them did that on their own sometimes. They'd release this thing called, I think, Pack Watch, which is like a standalone little issue that was kind of like the Sears catalog.
And some of them have those scores, and some don't. Like Biobility isn't scored, Commando's not scored.
Oh, weird.
And then also the blurbs for each game have no opinion, no criticism, no judgment. It's just an objective description of the game. So a lot of IGN's viewers today would be very happy to read these reviews.
So it's
objective reviews.
It's a buyer's guide. It's just a product catalog. It's like a Sears catalog.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're just like flipping through, looking at pictures. They don't have a screenshot of Hudson's Adventure Island for some reason.
I would have that derpy skateboarder from earlier.
Man, I would have loved this as a kid. I would have read every single one of these blurbs and looked at every single one of these screenshots. For sure.
It's just like it must have been every NES game that was available in 1988 because it goes on for so many pages.
Mm-hmm.
It's still going. I'm still just clicking through these pages and pages of games. And then you get to Sega, and their section is much shorter. So there's weren't as many games, right?
This is for the Master System?
Yeah. It's a Sega Master System. And the Atari is even shorter still.
Wait, why was it Glass Joe on the Atari section? Go back.
You're right. It is Glass Joe in the Atari section. I guess there's a Fight Night game. It's the first game that they mention. Getting their wires crossed at that point.
Does it specify which Atari system this is? I guess it's 7200.
Well, it would have been the 7800, which could play both 5200 and 2600 games.
Okay.
So, right. So this includes that. And Food Fight's in there. Cool. Although it didn't get very high scores, apparently.
It's a perfect game in the arcade.
So once you get through the buyer's guide, get you a review of Contra written by Andy Eddy,
who we used to work with. That's the content.
Yeah, it's a legend. Former GameSpy, IGN. And the review is interesting. Even though they scored games in the buyer's guide, there's no score on the review. But he likes the game a lot, and it opens up talking about why he likes the game, even though it's like not very original or anything. But then halfway through his review, he gets into secret hint. Contra normally provides you with 3 commandos to start, but there is a little-known method of popping that beginning troop count up to 30, and then the final 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs of his review are describing how to do that, how to get 30 players in Contra.
Really?
Yeah.
You're right.
And then, of course,
the whole cheat section is built into the review. I love it.
Yeah. And then it ends with the obligatory address and phone number for Konami Incorporated in Wooddale.
All those old magazines did that, didn't they?
Yep. I guess there's a strategy guide for Blaster Master in it, too. I don't think I was going to go.
Do you think at the end of the strategy guide they have a review?
No, but they walk you through even how to defeat the final boss in the very last little paragraph here. So this is everything you need to do in Blaster Master.
You kind of need to play along to a guide for Blaster Master. It's helpful.
Yeah. There's the Game Doctor answers your questions. One of them is, what happened to text adventures? The answer is, like vaudeville, silent movies, and radio drama, text adventures have become a creative dead end, a game format that is no longer viable because its audience has moved on to new, less demanding forms of interactive entertainment. And he actually waxes on for a few more paragraphs on why text adventures are no longer around.
He just had to wait just a little bit longer for the internet to come around to have a renaissance for text adventures.
I like this one. How do I take advantage of the various online services supposedly available to computer users? Well, you need a couple of things. Yeah, 88. You need a couple of things besides the computer, disk drive, and monitor itself. You need a modem, and of course, a membership in the services of your choice. The most popular being Delphi, Q-Link, CompuServe, and the Source. It's always interesting to see people talking about going online in the 80s.
Yeah, they used the modems that had the telephone cradles.
Yep,
those are so cool.
Yes. Who invented video games is one question. We've got to go with Ralph Baer. Well, they correctly they identify Ralph Baer, which is, I definitely had no idea who Ralph Baer was when I was 10 years old in 1988.
Yeah, you would hear Nolan Bushnell a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, then people have kind of corrected that back to Ralph Baer.
Yeah. Okay, that was a look through the December 1988 issue of Video Games and Computer Entertainment. That brings us to Video Game 20 questions, and our suggestions today come from the very same
Why didn't you just make that weird Z noise?
Because there's 2 of them.
Nick from Fort Wayne, Indiana, thought it would be a good idea, since we're wrapping up 2020, to go with 2020 questions. And I thought that was pretty cute. But of course, you are down a person, so I don't know. Should we hold that for next week, or do you guys feel like you can handle it?
Let's do the 2021 next week and do a different one this week.
Okay. we'll revisit this one. I just need to pick a new one really fast. I'll just pick the first one that comes up here in the old Game Scoop email.
Is it Blaster Master?
Maybe if I turn my head, I can see Damon's screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you actually?
No.
I'm gonna reject this one. Power Quest for the Game Boy Color.
Wouldn't have gotten that.
Nope.
Damon, you've been telling people for years not to pick stuff that like nobody's ever heard of, and they still send them in.
Yes, I know. They never learn. Oh, this one is good. Okay, I found a good one. Okay, I've got it. Let me just pull it up on Wikipedia so I can answer your challenging questions.
Put the Wikipedia URL in the chat so we have it too.
Okay, got it. Here it comes. Okay, let the questioning begin.
Could it have appeared in this issue of Video Games?
No, it could not have.
Can you play this game on your Nintendo Switch?
No.
Is this a platform exclusive?
No.
We're off to a bad start. Did this game come out in the 90s?
No.
Is it part of a series?
Yes, that's 5.
So it obviously came out in the 2000s or later. Unless it came out in 1989, and then we're stuck in this little tiny... Because that magazine was 88, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did this come out before 2008?
Yes.
Okay. That was good. That was clutch.
I don't really remember what the 2008 systems were.
I'm not sure why you picked 2008, but it did come out before 2008.
That's like GameCube, Xbox, PS2 era, and then maybe I don't know what year that may have been.
I think the 360 was 2008.
I was gonna say we may have just been kicking off the next generation by then.
Mm-hmm.
Not a platform exclusive. Was it developed in Japan?
No.
It's going poorly. I miss Tina.
Yeah. Did this come out on a optical disc?
Yes.
Did this come out on the GameCube?
No.
Damn it.
Was it on the PlayStation 2?
No. That's 10.
Oh, man.
Was it on the Xbox? The original Xbox?
Let's do C3. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
What? Wait, so it came out not... Is it from the
Wii generation of consoles?
No. Hold on. Wait, because let me think about this. So the GameCube PS2 was 2001 and GameCube and Xbox were 2002.
Yeah, so it could be like a PlayStation 1 game that on optical disc because there's Nintendo 64 games.
And it's always those 2000s and 64 games that screw us up.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry to interrupt.
I think it's from the Wii generation, not the earlier generation.
But that hadn't started yet by then, had it?
I think it's 2006 is Wii.
Oh, I think you're right. I might be wrong. They might be 2000. PS2 might have been 2000 and GameCube 2001.
Yeah, it still might not be on the Wii. I'm just saying that generation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think you're right.
Was this on the Wii era of consoles?
Can you specify?
Wii 360, PS3, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Was this available on Xbox 360?
Yes.
Okay.
It took us a while. Sorry about that. I was off by a few years.
No, you didn't do anything wrong. So was this a highly scored game?
Yes.
A multi-platform. So hold on. So multi-platform game that was not made in Japan that released on the 360.
Part of a series.
It's part of a series, and that's actually kind of all. That's kind of all we know at this point. Is the series still going today?
Yes.
Ooh,
that's 15.
Could be Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
Could be Call of Duty 2.
The Calls of Duty came out on Wii. But that wouldn't preclude this from being a thing.
Yeah. Did they come out on PS2? They may have way back in that early era. Or PS3. They may have actually been 360 PC only. Although I think by Modern Warfare and stuff, they were on. Is
this published by a company that has E3 press conferences as of 2019?
Yes.
It's not called. The Activision doesn't have a press conference.
Yeah.
Bethesda could be Morrowind.
Yep. It could be. So American companies that do that are basically Microsoft, Bethesda, but Microsoft wouldn't have had cross-platform, and then Ubisoft.
Yeah, Ubisoft.
So it's the first Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, it could be Assassin's Creed. So it's either Ubisoft or Bethesda. Is this a Ubisoft game?
No.
Oh.
Is it a Bethesda game?
No.
So it's EA. Is this an EA game?
Oh, wait. Yeah. But that's it. Now we got to guess.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, no.
We can get this.
No, we won't.
It could be Mass Effect.
Yeah. But they were already, BioWare was already associated with EA that far back. They'd already bought them. Yeah.
So, it's an EA game released on a disc before 2008 that appeared on the 360.
And the series is still around.
Series still around. It wasn't an exclusive.
Oh, the series still being
EA
around.
doesn't have a lot of series.
I was going to say, so Damon probably wouldn't do us dirty by making it like Madden 2006. Like,
no.
I'm going to assume besides like maybe like Fight Night or something, we can probably eliminate all the core sports games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's sports.
I'm going to give you kind of two hints.
Yeah, we need a hint because we didn't have Tina.
The first one is that you guys are nowhere even close to getting this game. But the second part of that hint is that I thought you could get it. I really, really thought you two could get it without Tina.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably...
Is there like Peggle type stuff?
Yeah, there is PopCap. Did EA buy PopCap? Do they own PopCap still?
I don't know.
I could also.
Like Battlefield. I can't remember when EA gobbled up like the different companies that they acquired.
Mm-hmm. But he said we're not even close, so I can't really think of a leap I can make right now.
Plants vs. Zombies.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's guess that. Did that appear? Is it Plants vs. Zombies?
No. And I don't know if that got released on a disc on 360 or not.
Whatever, man.
No, it is Lord of the Rings, The Battle for Middle-earth 2.
Oh, we should have asked about licenses.
Yeah. I played that game. I had that game.
I played it on 360, yeah.
Is that a strategy game?
Yeah.
It's RTS.
Wow.
It was when they were still in that era of trying to make RTS games work on console. They sort of figured out a control scheme that actually worked pretty well.
Yeah, that one actually worked well. And even with like Halo Wars, they continue to improve that control scheme for consoles. That was made right at EA Los Angeles, 2006, both PC and 360.
So that EA must have had the Lord of the Rings license to some abstract point.
Well, didn't EA publish all those like action Lord of the Rings games that were based on the movies?
Those games are good. Yeah. Those games, people have a lot of nostalgia for those.
They're like RPG light. And they really use the scenes from the movies to set their games in them.
I think they were just called, like the Two Towers, Return of the King.
And they came out on Game Boy Advance and like their own little versions and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
That suggestion came from Emil Lang in a place in Denmark that I can't even attempt to pronounce. But the body of his email might be relevant to you, Sam. He says, I've been following Janet, Brendan, and Miranda on Twitter and saw how they're preparing for the massive beast that's going to be IGN's Cyberpunk 2077 guide. It seems really interesting. I was hoping there might be an episode dedicated to how the IGN guides team tackled this whole ordeal internally and with freelancers. Guides seems like an underappreciated part of games coverage. It would be cool to shine a spotlight on them. I don't know I don't know if GameScoop is the place for that, but I just thought you'd be interested to hear that, Sam.
Yeah. No, that's really nice to hear. And I think what's funny is you might think it sounds underappreciated, but it's really appreciated because people love using strategy guides. And there's a lot of goodwill about it because we make these big, giant strategy guides. Now, putting faces in people with who makes the strategy guides is a whole nother thing. There's the internal editorial team, and then 20, 30 at any given time freelancers working on these things, and it's just a huge team and effort to to break these games down. You can see the origin in Video Games Magazine of how far those go back. It's a proud tradition, and I think the first way a lot of people discover IGN, which is really neat.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, that is going to be all the scoops that we have for you this week. Next week, when Tina's back, we will do video game 2020 questions, which I think is a very cute idea. But thank you to both Justin and Sam. Thank you to Borobo working behind the scenes. Remember, you can always reach us at the email address, gamescoop@ign.com. My name is Damon. This is IGN Gamescoop, and we're out.